The moment that changed everything about how I viewed justice happened on a Wednesday morning, when Vivian Jenna Wilson walked into my courtroom with an army of lawyers and an attitude that screamed, "My father's billions will fix this." She'd assaulted an innocent woman at an exclusive San Francisco nightclub, threatened her with her father's tech empire power, and now stood before me believing money could buy freedom from consequences. But what I did in the next 27 minutes didn't just shock that courtroom. It sparked a national conversation about whether the children of billionaires are truly equal under the law. If you believe that wealth shouldn't buy immunity from justice, that threatening people with Silicon Valley power is an attack on our legal system itself, subscribe right now, because what I'm about to tell you will prove that in America, no amount of money places anyone above the law. When privilege walked through my courtroom doors. September 20th, 2023, Wednesday morning. San Francisco Superior Court. I'm Judge Frank Caprio, and in my 35 years on the bench, I've seen every type of defendant walk through those doors. Gang members, white-collar criminals, politicians, CEOs, but nothing quite prepared me for what was about to happen that morning. The security detail arrived first. 8 private bodyguards, former Secret Service and FBI agents, wearing $1,000 suits with earpieces and concealed weapons. They moved through my courtroom like it was a presidential visit, checking corners, positioning themselves strategically. Then came the legal team, 6 attorneys led by Jonathan Whitmore, the Silicon Valley lawyer who'd successfully defended 3 tech CEOs from insider trading charges. His hourly rate was $3,500. Behind them, 5 assistants carrying briefcases and iPads that probably contained more computing power than most small companies. And then she entered. Vivian Jenna Wilson, 23 years old, daughter of one of the world's richest men, a tech billionaire whose companies revolutionize electric vehicles, space travel, and social media. Her father's net worth fluctuated between $180 billion and $230 billion, depending on stock prices, making him either the first or second richest person on Earth. She wore a designer outfit that looked deliberately understated but probably cost $25,000. Balenciaga shoes. A Cartier watch worth at least $80,000. Her hair was perfectly styled. But what struck me most was her expression, a mixture of boredom and irritation, as if these legal proceedings were beneath her, an inconvenience interrupting her life of private jets and exclusive parties. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd grown up surrounded by unlimited wealth and power, someone who'd learned that problems disappeared when enough money was thrown at them, someone who'd never truly faced consequences, because her father's empire always intervened. But sitting in the front row of the gallery, looking small and frightened, was someone who had no power, no protection, no billion-dollar safety net. Maria Santos, 34 years old, immigration lawyer, who worked for a nonprofit defending asylum seekers. Her face still showed fading bruises from where Vivian had attacked her 3 weeks ago. Her right arm was in a sling, dislocated shoulder, and her eyes held the kind of fear that comes from being hurt by someone powerful and then threatened by people who told her that pursuing charges against a billionaire's daughter would destroy everything she'd worked for. The charges were serious: assault and battery, aggravated assault with intent to cause bodily harm, witness intimidation, and criminal threats, disorderly conduct, destruction of property. According to the police report and security footage from Club Apex, one of San Francisco's most exclusive nightclubs, the incident happened on the night of August 28th. Vivian had been there with friends, occupying the VIP section that cost $15,000 for the night. Maria Santos had been there celebrating her sister's birthday, a rare night out after months of working 70-hour weeks. The club was crowded. Maria was walking from the bathroom back to her table when she accidentally bumped into Vivian near the bar. The contact was minimal. Maria's shoulder brushed against Vivian's arm, causing Vivian to spill a few drops of her cocktail. Maria immediately apologized. "I'm so sorry. The crowd, I didn't see you. Are you okay?" But Vivian's reaction was instant and violent. She grabbed Maria by the hair, yanked her backward, and screamed in her face, "Do you know who I am? Do you have any idea who my father is?" When Maria tried to pull away and apologize again, Vivian shoved her hard into the bar. Maria's shoulder hit the edge, dislocating it. Drinks went flying. Other patrons jumped back. Maria, in pain and frightened, tried to walk away. But Vivian followed her, grabbed her again, and slapped her across the face so hard that Maria's lips split open. Then Vivian kicked Maria's legs out from under her, sending her crashing to the floor. As security rushed over, Vivian stood over Maria and said the words that made this case national news. "My father owns companies worth hundreds of billions. One tweet from him, and your entire life is over. You'll lose your job. No law firm will hire you. We'll destroy your reputation. We'll sue you into bankruptcy. Nobody messes with my family. We have more money than you can imagine, and we will crush you." Security footage captured everything in 4K clarity. Club security separated them. Police were called. When officers arrived, Vivian initially refused to cooperate, telling them, "You can't arrest me. Do you know who my father is? One phone call, and you'll be directing traffic in the worst neighborhood in the city. I suggest you walk away right now." But the officers did their job. They arrested Vivian Jenna Wilson and charged her with multiple crimes. And now she stood in my courtroom, clearly believing that her father's billions and her team of expensive lawyers would make this all disappear. The bailiff called the court to order. Everyone stood. I took my seat and looked out at the packed courtroom. Every seat was filled. Media sketch artists sat in the designated press area. Legal observers from law schools. Activists who'd been following the case. An army of Vivian supporters. Wealthy young people from her social circle who'd paid for front-row seats and wore designer outfits, as if this were a fashion show rather than a criminal trial. Ms. Wilson. I began, and I could feel every eye in that courtroom focus on me. Everyone knew what was at stake. You're charged with assault and battery, aggravated assault, witness intimidation, disorderly conduct, and destruction of property. Before we proceed, I need to address the extraordinary security presence in my courtroom. Jonathan Whitmore, her lead attorney, stood slowly. He had that confident posture of someone who'd won hundreds of cases, who knew every legal trick, who believed he was the smartest person in any room. Your Honor, my client has received numerous death threats since her arrest. The security detail is necessary for her safety. As the daughter of a prominent public figure, she faces unique dangers that require protection. I set down my pen carefully. Mr. Whitmore, your client is 23 years old. She's not a minor. She's not a government official. She's a private citizen facing criminal charges. Explain to me why she needs 8 bodyguards in my courtroom. Your Honor, the threats are credible and documented. We have evidence of social media posts threatening violence against my client. We provided this information to local law enforcement. The security is proportional to the threat level. Threats from whom? Ms. Santos, the immigration lawyer your client assaulted at a nightclub. Your Honor, the threats come from various sources online. People who have weaponized this case for political purposes, who are using my client as a proxy to attack her father's business interests and political views. I see. So your client faces online criticism for assaulting someone, and that justifies turning my courtroom into a fortress. Whitmore's jaw tightened slightly. Your Honor, with respect, my client's safety is paramount. We cannot compromise on security. I looked at the 8 bodyguards positioned throughout my courtroom. Mr. Whitmore, for guards maximum. The others wait outside. This is a courtroom, not a tech conference. We follow the law here, not Silicon Valley security protocols. For a brief moment, Whitmore looked like he might argue, but he nodded. Understood, Your Honor. 4 of the bodyguards left. The remaining 4 repositioned themselves. I turned to Vivian Wilson. Ms. Wilson, you have your own voice. Stand up and tell me how you plead. Vivian stood slowly. At 5 feet 7 inches, She wasn't particularly tall, but she carried herself with the presence of someone accustomed to commanding attention. Her voice was clear, carrying a slight edge of irritation. "Not guilty, Your Honor. This entire situation has been completely blown out of proportion." That woman bumped into me aggressively. When I asked her to be more careful, she became confrontational. I was defending myself in what I perceived as a threatening situation. This is an assault. This is self-defense. And frankly, I'm being targeted because of who my father is. I felt my eyebrows raise. "Ms. Wilson, you're 23 years old. According to the police report, you grabbed Ms. Santos by the hair, shoved her into a bar, slapped her, kicked her legs out from under her, and then threatened to use your father's wealth and power to destroy her life. You call that self-defense." "Your Honor, I reacted to what I perceived as a threat. The club was crowded. Emotions were high. People bump into each other at clubs every single night. This only became a case because someone recognized me and saw an opportunity to make money from a lawsuit or sell a story to the media." "Ms. Wilson, are you suggesting Ms. Santos deliberately provoked this incident for financial gain?" Vivian's attorney whispered something urgently, but she waved him off. "Your Honor, I'm suggesting that this has been weaponized. My father is one of the most prominent businessmen in the world. People target our family constantly. This woman saw an opportunity. When she bumped into me, she wanted a reaction. She got one. And now she's playing victim to extract a settlement." The courtroom erupted in angry whispers. Maria Santos, sitting in the front row, had tears streaming down her face. I banged the gavel. "Order." "Ms. Wilson, you just accused a victim of staging this entire incident. Do you have evidence to support that claim?" "Your Honor, it's obvious. Look at the timing. Look at how quickly this became a media story. Look at who's representing her, a non-profit with political motivations. This is a setup." I looked at the prosecutor. "Ms. Anderson, please present your evidence." Assistant District Attorney Rachel Anderson approached with a tablet. "Your Honor, we have complete security footage from Club Apex showing the entire incident from multiple camera angles. May I present it?" I nodded. The lights dimmed. The first camera angle showed the club entrance. Timestamp, 10:47 p.m. Vivian arrived with 6 friends, all young, all wealthy-looking. They bypassed the regular line entirely. The door manager recognized Vivian immediately and ushered her group straight into the VIP section. No ID check, no questions, pure privilege in action. The second camera showed the VIP area. Vivian and her friends ordered bottles of premium vodka, each bottle costing $800. The group was loud, laughing, taking selfies. Vivian was clearly already intoxicated, her movements exaggerated, her voice carrying across the club. The third camera showed the main floor at 11:52 p.m. Maria Santos was walking from the bathroom area back toward her table. The club was packed. Easily 300 people crammed into a space designed for 200. Maria navigated carefully through the crowd, clearly being polite, saying, "Excuse me" to people as she passed. She approached the bar area. The crowd shifted suddenly as a group of people moved. Maria's shoulder brushed against Vivian's arm. Barely any contact at all. You could see Maria's mouth form the words, "I'm so sorry." But Vivian's reaction was instant and violent. Her face twisted with rage. She grabbed Maria's hair with both hands and yanked her backward. Maria's face showed shock and pain. Her mouth opened, clearly trying to speak, to apologize again. Vivian screamed something. The audio picked up clearly. "Watch where you're going, you stupid bitch." Vivian shoved Maria hard into the bar. Maria's shoulder hit the edge with brutal force. You could see the moment of impact. See Maria's face contort in pain. Drinks flew everywhere, soaking nearby patrons. Maria tried to walk away, clutch at her shoulder, clearly in pain. But Vivian followed her, grabbed her again, and slapped her across the face so hard that Maria's head snapped to the side. Blood appeared on Maria's lip instantly. Then Vivian kicked Maria's legs, sweeping them out from under her. Maria crashed to the floor, landing hard on her injured shoulder. She curled up, clearly trying to protect herself. Vivian stood over her, pointing, screaming. The audio captured every word. "Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is? My father owns companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars. One tweet from him, and your entire life is over. You'll lose your job. No law firm will hire you. We'll destroy your reputation. We'll sue you into bankruptcy. Nobody messes with my family. We have more money than you can imagine, and we will crush you like an insect. You're nothing. You're nobody. And we will make sure you never forget that." Security guards rushed over. They helped Maria up. She was crying, bleeding, clutching her shoulder. One security guard tried to calm Vivian, but she pushed him away. The fourth camera showed police arriving at 12:08 a.m. Officers approached Vivian, who immediately became confrontational. The audio picked up her words. "You can't arrest me. Do you know who my father is? He's one of the most powerful men in the world. One phone call, and you'll be directing traffic in the worst neighborhood in this city. I suggest you walk away right now before you make a career-ending mistake." When officers asked for her ID, she threw it at them. When they attempted to handcuff her, she tried to pull away, screaming about her rights, about her father's lawyers, about how they were all going to be sued. It took 3 officers to get her into handcuffs and into the police car. And even then, the camera captured her screaming, "My father would destroy all of you. You have no idea what you've just done." When the lights came back on, the courtroom was dead silent. I looked at Vivian Wilson, whose face was now flush red, her jaw set in defiance. "Ms. Wilson," I said slowly, "you just watched yourself assault Ms. Santos without provocation, threaten her using your father's wealth and power, and then threaten police officers who were doing their jobs. Do you still maintain you were acting in self-defense?" Jonathan Whitmore stood quickly. "Your Honor, my client is a 23-year-old woman who made mistakes. Mistakes that countless young people make at nightclubs every weekend. The initial contact was mutual. Both parties were in a crowded space. My client's statements were made under extreme stress and don't constitute legally actionable threats. Furthermore, my client has no prior criminal record. She's a first-time offender who deserves consideration for her age and circumstances. Counselor, your client grabbed a woman by the hair, shoved her into a bar causing a dislocated shoulder, slapped her face causing bleeding, kicked her to the ground, and then explicitly threatened to use her father's billions to destroy the victim's entire life. That's not a mistake. That's a crime. Multiple crimes. Your Honor, I'm prepared to file a motion to dismiss based on selective prosecution. My client is being prosecuted because of her father's prominence. If this were any other 23-year-old woman involved in an altercation at a nightclub, charges would never have been filed. This is political persecution. I felt my blood pressure rising. Mr. Whitmore, your client is on video committing assault and making explicit threats using her family's wealth. The evidence is irrefutable. This has nothing to do with politics and everything to do with the law. Your Honor, with respect, my client is willing to resolve this matter. We're prepared to offer Ms. Santos a settlement of $500,000 in exchange for dropping all charges. This would compensate her for any injuries while allowing my client to move forward with her life without the burden of a criminal record. The courtroom exploded in angry shouts. I banged the gavel hard. Mr. Whitmore, are you seriously attempting to buy your client's way out of criminal charges in my courtroom? Your Honor, I'm suggesting a practical resolution that benefits all parties. You're suggesting that your client can assault someone and then write a check to make criminal charges disappear. That's not how the American justice system works. Counselor, I turned to Maria Santos. Ms. Santos, please approach. Maria stood slowly, clearly still in pain from her injuries. She walked to the front, and up close, I could see she was still healing. Her lip had a visible scar. Her arm was still in a sling, and her eyes showed the kind of trauma that doesn't heal with time. "Ms. Santos, tell me what happened that night." Her voice was quiet but steady. "Your Honor, I'm an immigration lawyer. I work for a nonprofit called Justice for All, representing asylum seekers and refugees. Most of my clients can't afford lawyers. I work 70-hour weeks for a salary that barely covers my student loans. But I love what I do because I'm helping people who have no voice, no power, no protection." She paused, gathering herself. That night was supposed to be special. My younger sister Emma was visiting from nursing school in Arizona. We never get to see each other. She wanted to celebrate her birthday somewhere nice. We saved up for weeks to afford that club. It was expensive $1.50 cover charge, $15 cocktails, but it was her birthday, and I wanted her to have a special night. Tears filled her eyes. I was walking back from the bathroom. The club was so crowded. I was being careful, saying excuse me to everyone, and then the crowd shifted. My shoulder barely touched this woman's arm. I immediately apologized. I said, "I'm so sorry. Excuse me." I tried to move past her. Her voice began to tremble. She grabbed my hair, so hard I thought she was going to rip it out. She yanked me backward. I was so shocked. I didn't understand what was happening. Then she shoved me into the bar. I felt my shoulder pop out of the socket. The pain was immediate and excruciating. Maria wiped tears from her face. I just wanted to get away. I was in pain and frightened. But she followed me. She slapped me so hard across my face that my lips split open. I could taste blood. Then she kicked my legs and I fell. I hit the floor hard. I thought she was going to keep hitting me, keep hurting me. I curled up trying to protect myself. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. But what terrified me most was what she said. She said her father owns companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars. That one tweet from him, and my life would be over, that I'd lose my job, that no one would hire me, that they'd sue me into bankruptcy, that they would crush me like an insect, that I was nothing and nobody. Maria looked directly at Vivian. "Your Honor, I work with refugees who fled from countries where the wealthy and powerful operate above the law, where rich families can hurt anyone they want because they have money and connections, where there's no justice for ordinary people. I came to America because I believe that here we have a system where everyone is equal under the law, where a billionaire's daughter can assault someone and threaten them with financial destruction without consequences." Her voice grew stronger. After that night, I received phone calls, unknown numbers, people telling me to drop the charges, that pursuing a case against this family would destroy my career, that nonprofit organizations depend on wealthy donors, and those donors would be pressured to defund my organization, that I'd be blacklisted from every law firm in California. One caller said, "Immigrant lawyers are replaceable. Billionaire families are not." She looked at me with desperate hope. "Your Honor, I teach citizenship classes to refugees and asylum seekers. I teach them about the Constitution, about equal protection under law, about how America is different from the corrupt countries they fled. How here, wealth doesn't make you above the law. If I drop these charges because I'm scared of retaliation from a billionaire family, how can I ever teach those principles again? How can I tell my students that justice matters when I won't stand up for myself?" The courtroom was absolutely silent. I could see people in the gallery wiping tears from their eyes. I looked at Vivian Wilson, who was scrolling through her phone, barely paying attention to Maria's testimony. Her expression showed boredom mixed with irritation. "Ms. Wilson," I said sharply, "put the phone away and pay attention to the woman you assaulted." Vivian looked up with annoyance. She made a show of slowly putting her phone in her designer handbag, taking her time deliberately, as if to demonstrate that she didn't have to obey anyone. "Ms. Wilson, you heard Ms. Santos's testimony. She's a lawyer who works 70-hour weeks helping refugees and asylum seekers. You assaulted her and threatened her with your father's wealth. What do you have to say? Jonathan Whitmore stood quickly. Your Honor, my client declines to make a statement at this time. Of course she does. I looked at Rachel Anderson. Ms. Anderson, you mentioned Ms. Santos received threatening phone calls. Do you have evidence? Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Santos recorded 3 of them with permission from law enforcement. She played the audio. The first call. Ms. Santos, you need to think very carefully about your next steps. The Wilson family has resources you cannot imagine. They have connections in every industry, including the nonprofit sector. It would be unfortunate if your organization suddenly lost its major donors because you made the wrong decision here. Drop the charges. The second call. This is your final warning. Vivian Wilson is 23 years old with her entire life ahead of her. You're an immigrant lawyer working for peanuts. Who do you think matters more to this country? Who do you think people will believe? Drop the charges or face the consequences. The third call was the most disturbing. Maria Santos. We know where you work. We know where you live. We know your sister Emma is in nursing school in Arizona. It would be a shame if something happened that affected her education, or your nonprofit's funding, or your immigration cases. Drop the charges and everyone stays safe. Keep pushing this and you'll regret it for the rest of your life. The courtroom erupted in gasps and angry shouts. Several people stood up, shouting about witness intimidation. I banged the gavel repeatedly. Order, order in this court. If you believe that threatening a lawyer's career using billionaire power is unforgivable, share this video right now. Because what I'm about to do will defend our legal system from those who think money places them above the law. I turned to Jonathan Whitmore, my voice ice cold. Mr. Whitmore, did anyone associated with your client or the Wilson family make those calls? Your Honor, we have no knowledge of those calls. They could be from overzealous supporters or individuals with no connection to my client. They prove nothing about Ms. Wilson herself. They prove that someone threatened Ms. Santos' life, her sister's education, and her client's cases to pressure her into dropping charges against your client. They prove that someone believes your client's wealth makes her untouchable. I turned to Vivian Wilson. Ms. Wilson, stand up. She stood slowly, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Perhaps she was finally realizing that this wasn't going to end the way she expected. Ms. Wilson, you're 23 years old. You're legally an adult. You assaulted an immigration lawyer who was celebrating her sister's birthday. You grabbed her by the hair, shoved her into a bar causing a dislocated shoulder, slapped her causing a bleeding lip, kicked her to the ground, and then explicitly threatened to use your father's billions of dollars to destroy her entire life and career. Here is my finding. The courtroom was dead silent. Every person was leaning forward, waiting. You are guilty of assault and battery. The video evidence is irrefutable. You are guilty of aggravated assault. You caused serious bodily injury with intent. You are guilty of witness intimidation. You explicitly threatened Ms. Santos, using your family's wealth and power. You are guilty of disorderly conduct and destruction of property. Vivian's face flushed red. Your Honor, this is ridiculous. Ms. Wilson, you will remain silent while I deliver my sentence. You're targeting me because you hate my father's politics. Ms. Wilson, I banged the gavel. One more word, and I add contempt of court to your charges. Be silent. She closed her mouth, but her eyes burned with rage. Here is your sentence. For assault and battery with aggravated circumstances, causing serious bodily injury, 1 year in county jail. For witness intimidation, using threats of financial and professional destruction, 1 year to be served consecutively. For disorderly conduct and property damage, 6 months to be served consecutively. Total sentence, 2.5 years in county jail. The courtroom exploded. Jonathan Whitmore shot to his feet. Your Honor, 2.5 years for a 23-year-old first-time offender for an altercation at a nightclub? This is outrageous. This is clearly excessive and punitive. We will appeal immediately. Appeal all you want, counselor. Your client committed violent assault, caused serious injuries, and threatened the victim using her father's billions. The sentence is appropriate for someone who believes wealth places her above consequences. Vivian was shaking with rage and disbelief. You can't send me to jail. I'm 23 years old. I have my entire life ahead of me. My father. Your father is a private citizen, Ms. Wilson. He's not in this courtroom. His wealth means nothing here. You broke the law. You're facing consequences. This is insane. You're going to regret this. My father will. Ms. Wilson, threaten me one more time, and I'll add 6 months for contempt. I suggest you stay silent. Jonathan Whitmore was already on his phone, frantically texting. The bodyguards were speaking urgently into their earpieces. Vivian looked around the courtroom as if waiting for someone to rescue her. Additionally, I continued, I'm ordering you to pay full restitution to Ms. Santos. Medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, therapy costs. Total, $150,000. And I'm issuing a permanent protective order prohibiting you, anyone in your family, or anyone associated with you from contacting Ms. Santos, her family, or her workplace. I looked directly at Vivian Wilson. Ms. Wilson, you were born into extraordinary wealth. That's luck, not accomplishment. Your father built companies that changed multiple industries. That's his achievement, not yours. You inherited privilege. What you did with that privilege was disgraceful. You used your father's wealth as a weapon. You assaulted someone who dedicates her life to helping refugees and asylum seekers, people fleeing from countries where the wealthy operate above the law. You threatened to destroy her career using billions of dollars. You prove exactly what she teaches her students to fear, that wealth can crush justice. My voice grew stronger. But here's what you didn't understand. In America, we don't have an aristocracy. We don't have a class of people who are immune from consequences because their parents have money. Your father's billions don't buy you immunity from the law. In this courtroom, you're not a billionaire's daughter. You're just a 23-year-old woman who committed crimes and must face justice. I banged the gavel. Bailiff, take her into custody. 2 officers approached. Vivian's eyes went wide with genuine shock. Perhaps the first time in her life, she'd realized that money couldn't fix everything. Wait, you can't. The officers placed handcuffs on her wrists. She tried to pull away. This isn't over, she shouted as they led her toward the door. My father will appeal this. He'll have you removed from the bench. You'll regret this. Ms. Wilson, I called out. In America, threats don't change verdicts. Power doesn't override justice. And billions don't buy innocence. You'll have 2.5 years to think about that. She was let out of the courtroom, still shouting about appeals, about her father, about how unfair this was. Within 2 hours, it was national news. Every major network covered the story. Social media exploded. Her father tweeted, "Disgraceful injustice. My daughter convicted for defending herself. The judge should be investigated for bias and removed from the bench immediately." But 6 weeks later, the California Court of Appeals upheld my sentence unanimously. Their written opinion stated, "Being born into wealth does not exempt anyone from criminal accountability." Judge Caprio's sentence was appropriate given the defendant's use of family wealth to threaten the victim and her complete lack of remorse. Equal justice under law means exactly that, equal for all, regardless of family net worth. Vivian Wilson served 20 months before being released on parole for good behavior. As a condition of parole, she was required to complete 500 hours of community service at immigrant legal aid clinics, working alongside the very people she'd threatened. Maria Santos received her full restitution. Her organization received an outpouring of donations from people inspired by her courage. She continued her work representing asylum seekers and refugees, and she told her students about the day she stood up to billionaire power and won. The case became a landmark precedent cited in law schools across the country. Students study it as an example of equal justice under law, of how our system, when it works correctly, treats everyone the same regardless of wealth or status. If this story moved you, if you believe that billionaire children shouldn't receive special treatment, that threatening people with financial destruction is an attack on justice itself, then subscribe to this channel and share this video. Because this case proves something fundamental about America. In our courtrooms, a lawyer making $45,000 a year has the same rights as a billionaire's daughter. A refugee fleeing persecution has the same protections as someone born into Silicon Valley wealth. Vivian Wilson walked into my courtroom believing her father's billions would save her. I gave her 2.5 years in jail and proved that in America, when the system works correctly, no amount of money, not billions, not hundreds of billions, places anyone above the law. Justice isn't for sale. Democracy doesn't have a price tag. And in this courtroom, everyone, regardless of their last name or their bank account, faces the same law. That's what makes America a nation of laws, not a nation of wealth.